Welcome to Season 2, Episode 19. Trauma is a nervous system injury. At the end of the last piece, I left you with a sentence. I said that trauma is not a story. It's also not a character flaw, and it's not a weakness. Trauma is an injury to the nervous system. And that's what we're going to examine today. Because if it is an injury, we have to be precise about what got injured. And trauma is what happens when an experience exceeds the nervous system's capacity to encode it normally. Not the event. The encoding failure that happened under the event. Two people can walk through the same hour. One leaves with a memory, one leaves with a pattern that runs them. The difference is what the nervous system was able to do with it. Now, under ordinary conditions, memory encodes through the hippocampus. The hippocampus contextualizes. It timestamps it. It binds the experience into something with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's why an ordinary memory feels like the past, because the system tagged it as the past. Now look what happens under threat. When the system perceives threat above its window of tolerance, the amygdala takes over. The hippocampus goes quiet, and the experience is encoded, but not as a story. It's encoded as a state, as a fragment, as sensory data, as an autonomic pattern. The memory is stored, but it's stored without a timestamp, without a contextual binding, and without the signal that tells the system this is over. And that is the injury. Not a missing memory, a memory that was encoded by the wrong mechanism. This injury has signatures. 1, intrusion. The memory runs without permission. A flash, a smell, a sound, a feeling that arrives unannounced. That is the encoding firing the way it was stored. 2, avoidance. The system protects against refiring the pattern. The client avoids people, places, conversations, even thoughts. Not because they're choosing it, because the nervous system has flagged the pattern as dangerous. 3, arousal. The autonomic baseline shifts. Sleep becomes lighter. The startle response sharpens. The body holds an expectation it cannot put into words. These are not personality. These are signatures of an encoding event that did not finish. You will have heard the framing that trauma is stored in the body. That description is pointing to something real. The body is expressing what the nervous system is holding. The body is not the location. The body is downstream of the signal. The tension, the gut, the vigilance, the disrupted sleep. These are live readouts of an encoding pattern that is still running upstream. You do not heal an encoding failure by working on the symptoms. You heal it by repairing the encoding. Other injuries have repair pathways. Bone heals when it's set. Tissue heals when conditions allow it. And the nervous system has its own repair pathway. It's called reconsolidation. The mechanism that updates a memory is the mechanism that repairs the injury. Affective memory resolution is the application. It uses the reconsolidation pathway to update the encoding at the source. When the encoding updates, the signatures revolve. The intrusion gets quiet. The avoidance loosens. The autonomic baseline returns. Not because we taught the client to tolerate the pattern, because we updated the pattern. So why does trauma feel like it's still happening even years later? Because the encoding failure means the memory does not have a timestamp. The system runs the pattern as if it's in the present, not the past. And this is not the client failing to know what year it is. This is the nervous system firing a pattern that was stored without temporal binding. When reconsolidation updates the pattern, the timestamp is restored. The memory becomes past. Why are the memories fragmented? Why are there gaps? Why do some pieces feel sharper than anything and others feel missing? because the encoding mechanism that stored it was not the one that records story. It was the one that records state. Fragments, sensory snapshots, gaps where narrative would normally be. That is not damage to the memory. That's a signature of what the system did the encoding. So why does small stuff trigger such a big response? A tone of voice, a smell, a moment of being unseen? Because the nervous system has updated its baseline. It no longer calibrates to today. It is calibrating to whatever the encoding event taught it to expect. The trigger is not small. The trigger is matching a pattern that the system flagged as life or death. Until the encoding is updated, the matching continues. So if you take one thing from this, take this. Trauma is an injury to the encoding under threat. The signatures are predictable, the repair pathway is biological, and this is not a character problem. It's not a willpower problem. It is a pattern that was encoded by the wrong system in a moment when the right system could not stay online. And that is why the work that resolves it has to be precise. And this brings us to the next piece. If the encoding failure leaves the pattern without a timestamp, what is supposed to take an emotional memory and integrate it across time? There is a system for that. It runs every night. And when it fails to do its job, recovery stalls. And that's what we're going to examine next. If you want to learn how to use reconsolidation pathway clinically, the certification is where we teach the protocol that repairs the injury. The link's below. And if you want a lighter path, the app walks you through it experientially. And if you want a one-on-one work with me or one of our coaches, that option is there. But before any of that, answer one question for me. Of these three, which one matters most for someone you are working with right now? Why does trauma feel like it's still happening? Or why are the memories fragmented? Or why does small stuff trigger such big response? Comment below, because the next piece in this series is built on what you tell me.